welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be telling you guys about my birth story. I did promise to do this a long time ago, but better late than never. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do plan on probably posting here more than I do on Instagram. So don't forget to subscribe and also like this video. All right, so on August 10th, I was scheduled for an induction at 4:30 and I was, I believe it was exactly 41 weeks. I was really unhappy that I was going to have to get induced, and I did do a video about this while I was pregnant, so if you want to go back and watch that, you can. I'll link it in the description. But I was really unhappy, but by that time I had just made peace with it. But I did get a call around 3 o'clock telling me there was no beds, so I was not going to be able to come in just yet. And I was like low-key so excited. I was like, yes, more time for this baby to come out on her own. But then I got a call at 6 o'clock and they were like, okay, we have a bed for you, come in. So yeah, we came in, and so we get there, and I was immediately put on, I can't think of the name. It starts with the C. Is it Cytotec? I don't know, but it's supposed to soften your cervix. So I was put on that. It was like 9 o'clock by the time I was in my room and got settled in. It was about 9 o'clock that I was put in, I was put on Cytotec. I also was not allowed to eat. I did ask, but I wasn't allowed to eat. However, my husband did order pizza for himself, and I did end up eating pizza because I thought it was ridiculous that I think my last meal was around 3 o'clock and they expected me to not eat until I gave birth, which was just crazy. So I did eat, and I did eat my snacks while the nurses were not in the room. I also asked for a sleeping pill. So I watched a whole bunch of videos while I was pregnant, and I did take that advice on asking for a sleeping pill, so that, because I knew I was going to be really anxious and I was not going to rest. So I wanted to make sure that I slept good at night, so that the next day, whenever, you know, the contraction started, I was going to be well rested. Okay, hold on, baby's crying. Okay, so my husband has the baby, but so I went to sleep. The sleeping pill did work. I had a good night's rest. The next morning, I believe it was maybe around 7 o'clock in the morning, the nurses came in to check my cervix, and I think everything looked okay. And now it was time for me to be put on Pitocin. So I was also really unhappy that I was gonna have to be put on Pitocin, especially because I was not dilated. So when I came in, I believe I was 1 centimeter dilated, and after the Cytotec, after they softened up my cervix, I was still 1 centimeter, like I had not progressed at all, and they put me on Pitocin. So literally as soon as they put me on Pitocin, when they put the IV and they put the medication in, my water broke like instantly. And when your water breaks, it's such a like weird feeling. And it's a lot of water coming out of you. Well, I'm guessing it's like the amniotic fluid. But it just came out, and thankfully I was already on the bed and I had like the pads underneath me, so it was really easy to like clean up. But yeah, as soon as they put me on Pitocin, my water broke. And also the crazy thing is 30 minutes after I was put on Pitocin, my contractions started. and it went from 0 to 100 like real quick. I had heard a lot about, especially once I found out that I was going to get induced. I did my research, and they did say that Pitocin contractions are super, super intense, more intense than your natural contractions, just because, like I said, they go from 0 to 100 real quick. And instead of you getting a break in between each contraction, like you usually do with normal contractions that are not brought on by Pitocin, with Pitocin, you get them back to back. Like you don't get no break. And at first I was getting a break for maybe like the first hour, but then after that it was just back to back to back. And also, one of the things that also happened to me is probably 30 minutes to an hour after I was put on Pitocin, I started throwing up. So from then on, it was just the worst experience ever, because my contractions were so bad and I was throwing up the whole time. So fast forward to me giving, Evaluna coming out. I was in labor for a total of 18 hours. And from the moment that I was put on Pitocin, 30 minutes to an hour later, I was throwing up from then until 18 hours, or until the end of when Evaluna finally came out. So yeah, that was just the worst experience ever. But I was set on not even having the epidural. I was trying to do an unmedicated birth. So I just told myself to keep going. I even made like little flashcards with just motivational words and phrases, so that I can stay motivated. My husband also, he was doing counter pressure, but he was so tired, because like I said, I was getting them back to back with no break. So I was not getting a break and he was not getting a break. So I went unmedicated for a total of 6 hours. So another thing that I also researched was whenever your baby is about to come out, I was told that you go through this, like, I believe it's called transition, and you basically get the shakes, you might throw up, your contractions get more intense. And I did get to a point where I got the shakes. My contractions were so intense that I thought I was going into labor. But I got checked and I was only 2 centimeters dilated. So I went 6 whole hours with just intense contractions, and I had only progressed 1 centimeter. I did get checked previous times before that, like I think 2 hours in, and I still had not progressed. But by the time the 6-hour mark hit, I was only 2 centimeters. And that's the time that I just like, I gave up. I was like, okay, I'm not progressing at all. I'm only 2 centimeters. Like, there is no way that I'm going to throw up even more. And have just like these intense contractions with no break and not even be progressing. So I told my husband, I can't do this anymore. I couldn't even ask for the epidural myself. Like, he had to ask for it because I just felt like so defeated and I felt like I was giving up. So he asked for the epidural, and there was like 3 people ahead of me before I could get the epidural. So here's me throwing up all over the place with these intense contractions, bouncing on my birth ball, and just waiting for the anesthesiologist to come in and give me the epidural. So finally he comes in, and then I also want to say I'm really proud of myself because I did not want to be one of those people that was like yelling and just making a big old scene. And I know like you just can't control it when you're in the moment, but thankfully I was like in the zone. Like I was super quiet, I was breathing. Like that's one of the things that I'm really proud of myself, that I was breathing through all my contractions. I was not yelling. I was so concentrated, but still like I couldn't do it. And I felt like I really just kept my composure. I was really calm. I wasn't yelling, because when they say that when you yell, you're kind of like resisting the contractions, but I felt like I was just going through them. And yeah, it was not helping at all. I just feel like with Pitocin, it's so hard, and especially if you're not progressing and you're trying to go unmedicated, like it's just hard. So finally, anesthesiologist comes in. I get the epidural, and by the way, if you are going into labor and you feel your contractions, and then you get the epidural, like the epidural is like the pain. Like I don't even remember if the epidural was painful or not, because my contractions were so painful that like I did not even notice. I just remember feeling that relief. And then, lucky me, the epidural only worked on one side of my body. And I am not giving like you times because I really don't remember. I just know that I was without the epidural for 6 hours. So after I got the epidural, everything was good. I still threw up a few times, but it wasn't as consistent as whenever I was on Pitocin. And I was feeling so much better, because obviously I wasn't feeling the contractions. I was only feeling them on one side. So what I was having to do is lay on the side that I was feeling pain, so that the medication could go down that way. And I was still feeling like very mild pain, but it really wasn't that bad compared to what I was feeling before. So I got checked a couple times, and eventually I was told that I was progressing. I believe it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was told that I was 9 centimeters dilated. So the nurse came in, she put me in like several different positions to try to get me fully dilated. I even had to do a couple of practice pushes. And then the doctor comes in, which this part was just super frustrating. The doctor finally comes in. The doctor had not come in at all throughout this whole time. And she tells me, you're not 9 centimeters dilated, you're only 4. So from the 10th to the 11th, I had only progressed 4 centimeters, like being on Pitocin that whole time. I had not progressed any. So it was really frustrating that I was told, you know, you're 9 centimeters, you're gonna push. Because even though I had to be induced, I was at least happy that I was going to have my baby naturally. I was happy not to be having a C-section. So for her to tell me I was only 4 centimeters, it was like, okay, you know, now we're gonna talk about me having a C-section, because once your water breaks, they only recommend you going into labor for 12 hours, because after that you are a high risk, which I was already a high risk now, because I was hitting the 12-hour mark. So the doctor tells me, okay, you're gonna have to get a C-section. And I told her, okay, can I get 1 more hour? And then after the hour, if I still do not progress, if you see me still not progressing, then we can do the C-section. She didn't agree with me. Like, she wanted to go ahead and do the C-section, but she did what I asked her to, and we waited. So I ended up having to get a C-section. I did end up like crying really bad. I was just really scared and just really disappointed, because for my labor, I even wrote up a birth plan. Like, I had all of these things planned that I prepared for. I wanted to do skin to skin. I wanted Eva Luna to be put on my belly and like for her to crawl up to my breast to breastfeed. There's just all like, I just had this vision of how it was going to be once my baby was born, and now I had to get a C-section. So I cried, and I feel like I also got an anxiety attack before I went into my C-section, because I started to get super dizzy. I even asked my nurse to check my temperature and to check my blood pressure because I was just not feeling well. And she said all of my vitals were fine. So I feel like it was an anxiety attack because I was also short of breath. So having an anxiety attack before me going into my C-section was just another scary part. Okay, it's Eva Luna's nap time, but I want to finish this today. So they wheeled me in to the operating room, and I did have to get, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's basically like another epidural. And instead of me being numb the waist down, I was basically numb from the neck down, just because the other epidural didn't work on one side. So I had to get that in the operating room, and then I was ready. I was ready to get the C-section. So crazy thing that happened while I was getting the C-section is I started to throw up again. So I was literally throwing up like every 10 seconds, and my C-section lasted, I believe, like an hour and 30 minutes because I did end up hemorrhaging during my C-section. Another super, I don't want to say, I guess, yeah, it was traumatizing. Another super traumatizing thing that happened while I was having a C-section is I could hear the doctor yelling at the nurse. She kept yelling at her because she was supposed to have the room ready. I guess, I don't know, there was specific things that she was supposed to have in the operating room before I had my C-section, and the nurse did not do that. So I could hear the doctor just yelling at her and saying like, where is this? Why didn't you have this ready? She's high risk, she's bleeding out. I don't have this medication, and she was just missing a lot of things, and she kept asking for it while I was just hemorrhaging on the table. And Eva Luna came out perfect, like she was perfectly fine. And they were trying to stop the bleeding, and I could just hear just basically the room going crazy the whole time. And I am just so thankful for my anesthesiologist because he was so calm the whole time, and he was the only like person helping me not freak out. Like while I was on the table, I was throwing up, he was just, I don't know, like I was just listening to everything that he was saying because he was just keeping me calm. But from hearing just the craziness that was happening, like I thought I was going to die. And thankfully, so my husband is from Costa Rica. His English is not like really good. So he actually didn't know what was happening. I asked him like, what did he see? Like, did he understand what was happening? And he was like, no, like I just saw people running around and like going out and in of the room, like crazy. He's like, I had a feeling there was something going on, but you know, I couldn't understand what was happening, and he could just hear like the doctor yelling. And I always say like I'm thankful he didn't really understand what was going on, because I feel like he would have freaked out, and he wouldn't have been present for Eva Luna when she was born. um, you know, he wouldn't have like been there for her. He would have been worried, but thankfully he had no clue what was happening. He did see that I was throwing up like every 10 seconds though. So yeah, I didn't really get to even enjoy that moment of her coming out because of what was going on. So thankfully I did not die. After like an hour and 30, they put, I think it was like a Foley bulb. I think they put a bulb inside of me to block my arteries and to hopefully stop the bleeding. And they took me out of the room. I had to get a blood transfusion. Like, I lost a lot of blood. I got a blood transfusion. I don't know what else I got, but I was like given so many things throughout that surgery that it was just, I ended up looking like a balloon. If you followed me throughout my pregnancy, I did not get swollen at all. Like, my face is the same from when I was pregnant. My hands, my feet did not swell. But after Eva Luna came out, I was so swollen. And I was also like yellow. So yeah, that whole experience was really traumatizing. The first few weeks after Eva Luna came out, I was a little bit of an emotional mess, but thankfully I can say that yes, I had like a super traumatizing experience. It was something, I felt like I really prepared for my birth, and it like the total opposite ended up happening, which made me really sad at first. But now that I am a little over 4 months postpartum, I can tell you that you can really come out of something really dark stronger than you were before. Like, now I'm just like, I just went through that. I just went through one of like the scariest experiences of my life. Like, I can do anything. So I don't want this to be a video like if you're pregnant and you're about to go into labor. Like, I don't want you to be scared and feel like, oh my gosh, now I'm scared to go into labor. No, I want this to be sort of like I want you to use my story and just know that even if, you know, going into labor ends up being really rough for you, and I'm sure it is for everyone, like even if you don't have an experience like I did, like going into labor in general is hard. And after you go into labor, there's a lot of emotions there, but just know that, you know, yeah, you're going to be emotional the first few weeks, whether you have a traumatizing birth or not. But after that, you're going to come out so much stronger, and you're going to be like, damn, like I did that. I'm so strong. I am so capable, and I can do anything. So that's what I want you to take away from this. Yes, it was traumatizing, but now I'm like so thankful for the experience, because it just shows me that, you know, I can do anything and I don't need to be afraid. So, and I have this like really cute baby that keeps me up at night, and it's been really hard, but also really beautiful at the same time. So yeah, that's pretty much how my birth was. I feel like if I were to have another baby, which it's really not in the books as of now, we don't plan on having another baby, but if I ever were, I feel like this experience really helped me to also just plan better and not be in so much of a rush to get things done. Like, I was one of those people, like the moment I found that I was pregnant, I just like wanted everything ready, like as soon as possible, and I wanted to know everything. And I feel like I had to do that for this one. I don't regret it. But for the next one, like now I know what I want to do. I want to take my time looking for a doctor that's going to support what I want. and look for a hospital that's going to support what I want. And yeah, just different things that I want if I do decide to ever have another one, which, like I said, that's not in the books unless God decides that I need to be pregnant. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I am really grateful for all of you who have stuck around throughout my fitness journey, throughout my pregnancy, and now a new mom life. I plan to share a lot more, and I'm just so excited for this new year. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and like this video.